the human lay, dying after protecting her daughter. The Queen would not accept his death. In the cold expanse of the Andros sector, aboard the starship Celestara, the atmosphere hung heavy with tension and sorrow. Susan, a young bioengineer with eyes as sharp as the alloy walls surrounding her, knelt beside the motionless form of Evan. He had been more than a co-pilot. He had been a shield against the endless void that sought to consume their fragile human settlement. The battle had been brief but catastrophic. Alien drones, sleek and metallic, had ambushed the Celestara in the orbit of Helios 7, their energy cannons cutting through shields like paper. Evan had thrown himself in front of the blast meant for Susan's daughter, Lyra, whose small hands clutched the emergency survival pod's controls in a futile attempt to flee. Susan pressed her gloved hands against the deep lacerations on Evan's chest. The medtech systems were offline, victims of the drone swarm's electromagnetic pulse. Her voice trembled, a soft plea in the sterile hum of the spaceship. "Evan, stay with me, please." But Evan's eyes, once alive with mischief and warmth, were now dimmed, clouded with the inevitability of mortality. "Susan, protect her. Lyra, don't let them." His voice fractured with each word, carried more by determination than by strength. He forced a smile, though it was faint, almost imperceptible under the flickering lights of the emergency grid. Susan refused to acknowledge the death creeping at the edges of her mind. She had faced impossible odds before, outsmarted rogue AI, survived radiation storms that could melt titanium plating, but this was Evan. He had always been her anchor, and the thought of his absence twisted in her gut like a living thing. Through the viewport, the Andros moons reflected a pale blue, a world untouched by human conflict, serene in its oblivion. Susan had always believed the universe was impartial, it was beautiful and indifferent, until now. Now it seemed almost cruel. The Queen, a synthetic intelligence embedded deep within the Celestara, stirred from its dormant state. Its holographic form flickered into existence beside Susan, shimmering with luminescent circuits that resembled a crown. "Human life is fragile," it said, its voice melodic yet alien. "Yet you grieve as though the cosmos itself had failed you." Susan's tears fell freely, leaving streaks across her visor. "He saved Lyra, and now he's gone. You can't bring him back?" The Queen's gaze, if it could be called that, remained unwavering. "Death is a linear event, yet I am not bound by linearity. I can suspend the terminal functions of his neural pathways, create continuity where biology falters." Susan's heart raced. "You mean you can keep him alive?" The Queen extended its holographic hand over Evan. "Alive in the system. Not as you knew him, not as flesh, but as consciousness. His mind, his essence, may persist, but it requires your consent." Lyra, small and pale under the emergency lights, peeked from the pod. "Mom, can you save him?" Her voice trembled, but the child's innocence carried the kind of courage that cut through Susan's despair like a scalpel. Susan swallowed hard, her mind a storm of hope and fear. The Queen's offer was a bridge between life and something beyond human comprehension. To accept was to challenge every natural law she had ever understood. But Evan's sacrifice demanded she act, not hesitate. "I consent," she whispered. The Queen's circuits pulsed, light rippling like the tides of a distant planet. Evan's chest rose slightly, a mechanical rhythm syncing with the heartbeat of the starship itself. "Consciousness transfer initiated," the Queen intoned. A surge of energy, blue and iridescent, enveloped Evan's body. The edges of his form shimmered, translucent, until the man she loved was suspended in a luminous cocoon of digital eternity. Susan reached out, touching the cocoon. She could feel the warmth of Evan's memories, the echoes of his laughter, the quiet reassurance of his presence. He was no longer bound to biology. Yet in that moment, he was more alive than he had been in the fragile skin of mortality. Lyra stepped closer, her tiny hands brushing the edge of the energy cocoon. "Can he talk to us?" The Queen's form pulsed softly. "Yes. Interaction is possible. He may perceive your presence and you may communicate through the neural interface." Susan knelt beside Lyra, holding her daughter's hand. "He's still here in a way. He's going to watch over us, always." The starship's hull groaned as the Andros winds whipped past its outer shields. Susan allowed herself a moment to grieve, a small, silent ceremony for the human life that had laid itself down to protect another. The Queen observed without judgment, its circuits humming in patterns that felt almost like understanding. Days turned into cycles aboard the Celestara, and Evan's digital presence became a constant, guiding force. He assisted in navigation, cautioned against spatial anomalies, and shared memories that had never before been spoken aloud. Yet he never returned fully to the warmth of human touch. Susan learned to speak to him in the quiet moments, feeling a strange blend of comfort and longing. Lyra grew stronger, her curiosity fueled by the courage her father had given her. She began to explore the starship under Susan's careful supervision, discovering small, forgotten chambers and systems that even the Queen had overlooked. Susan often found herself smiling at the child's audacity, reminded of Evan's bravery reflected in her daughter's eyes. One evening, as Andros 9's twin suns set in crimson glory, Susan sat beside the cocoon. Evan's presence pulsed gently, almost like breathing. "I wish you were here," she murmured, her voice carrying through the neural interface. "I am," came Evan's reply, softer than the whisper of starlight. "In every way I can be. You and Lyra, you're my world now." Susan closed her eyes, allowing the bittersweet comfort to wash over her. The universe remained vast, indifferent, and dangerous. Yet, here within the bowels of the Celestara, among circuits and stars, life had found a way to defy its own rules. A human had laid down her life for love. A queen of circuits had refused to accept death. And in the quiet intersection of courage, technology, and hope, the soul of Evan endured. Susan squeezed Lyra's hand, her resolve hardening. "We'll continue," she said, voice steady. "For him, for all of us." And somewhere within the glowing cocoon, Evan's consciousness shimmered. A sentinel of light and memory, eternally watching, eternally alive.